Welcome to Dark Hearts and True Crimes, where love turns lethal and the quietest homes hide the darkest secrets. Tonight, we're peeling back the layers of a story that shattered the illusion of happily ever after. It's a tale that unravels under California's sunshine, where betrayal and obsession smoldered behind the doors of a perfect home until everything ignited. This is a tragic descent of Betty Broderick. She was once the picture of the ideal American wife. Graceful, devoted, always giving. A woman who stood by her husband's side for nearly 20 years, through medical school, through law school, through every sacrifice required to build a life from nothing. But behind the pearls and PTA meetings, something inside her was quietly dying. And when it finally snapped, it didn't just end a marriage. It ended lives. By the time the sun came up, 2 people were dead, and the line between heartbreak and murder had been completely erased. It began the way most fairy tales do. Fall of 1965. Betty Broderick was just 17 when she met Dan Broderick at a college football game in Indiana. He was tall, handsome, charming, the kind a boy her strict Catholic upbringing had told her to look for. He had big dreams, and Betty didn't just believe in him. She wanted to build those dreams right alongside him. They married young, and from the very beginning, the agreement was unspoken but understood. Dan would chase the success. Betty would take care of everything else. While Dan studied, Betty worked. When Dan switched from medicine at Cornell to law at Harvard, she packed up their life again and kept supporting him. She worked multiple jobs, raised the kids, paid the bills, and every time she felt overwhelmed or exhausted, she reminded herself it was all part of the plan. They were building something, together. By the early 1980s, that dream had arrived. The Brodericks had moved to La Jolla, California, a coastal paradise lined with palm trees and private schools. Dan was now a high-powered attorney in medical malpractice law. Betty had given birth to 4 children. They had the big house, the luxury cars, the picture-perfect life. But behind closed doors, Betty could feel something shifting. Dan had grown cold, distant, and then there was Linda. Her name was Linda Colkina. She was blonde, 21, a former airline stewardess with no legal background, hired as Dan's assistant. Betty's gut screamed that something wasn't right, but Dan denied everything, called her paranoid, jealous, emotional, unstable, and slowly, Betty began to doubt herself. But the lies didn't stop the truth from creeping in. The late nights, the missed dinners, the new clothes and sudden absences. Betty wasn't crazy. She was watching her life unravel in real time. And the more Dan pulled away, the more frantic she became. She left him voicemails, rage-filled, desperate. She showed up at his house uninvited. She defaced his property, drove her car through his front door. Her pain was volcanic, hot and wild and uncontrollable. But from the outside, she looked like a woman unhinged. Dan filed for divorce, moved out, took control of the finances, of the narrative, of the children. And as Betty watched everything she had sacrificed her life to slip away, she felt herself vanish. And then came the final blow. In April 1989, Dan married Linda, the woman Betty had suspected all along. It was confirmation, and it was humiliation. In the month that followed, Betty lost even more. Her grip on reality, her relationships, her reputation. She began keeping journals, long, furious pages scribbled with betrayal, rage, and the need for justice. But justice wasn't what she wanted anymore. She wanted revenge. November 5th, 1989. Before the sun rose, Betty used a stolen key, one of the kids had given her months earlier, to slip quietly into the home Dan now shared with Linda. In her hand was a .38 caliber revolver. She crept up the stairs in silence, into their bedroom, and opened fire. 2 bullets hit Linda. One struck her in the head. She never had time to scream. Another hit Dan in the chest. He rolled out of bed, tried to reach for the phone. But Betty pulled the cord from the wall before walking away. By morning, she had turned herself in. And when the world heard what she'd done, it didn't know what to think. Some saw a woman destroyed by years of betrayal and manipulation. Others saw a cold-blooded killer who couldn't handle rejection. Betty's trial became a media sensation. Wealth, infidelity, murder, It had all the ingredients of a made-for-TV drama. But the stakes were real. 2 lives were gone, 4 children were left orphaned, and a country was left wondering what happens when a woman's world is taken from her piece by piece until there's nothing left but fury. Her defense argued that she had been provoked emotionally, psychologically, pushed beyond the point of no return. The prosecution saw no justification, only vengeance. Her first trial ended in a hung jury. Her second, a conviction, 2 counts of second-degree murder. Betty Broderick was sentenced to 32 years to life. And to this day, she remains unapologetic. "I was a good wife, a good mother," she once said. "I gave him everything." Some say she was silenced for too long. Others say she should have walked away. But the truth? It depends on who's telling the story. Today, Betty sits behind bars, still claiming she was a victim. Her children remain divided. Some visit her. Others never want to hear her name again. And the rest of us are left to ask the one question that never seems to fade. What turns a devoted wife into a killer? Is it betrayal? Jealousy? Madness? Or is it something more familiar? Something slower, quieter, like heartbreak that rots over time? Some wounds never heal. They fester, they burn, they bleed into everything. Until one day, they explode. This is Dark Hearts and True Crimes, where even the purest love can end in murder.